My name is Amelia Rose, and for 40 years, this old house was my Arthur's sanctuary. He built most of it with his own 2 hands, you know. Every piece of crown molding, every creaky floorboard, every nail was placed with a story in mind. We raised our son Michael within these walls. We buried a daughter here, too. A house absorbs all of that, the joy and the sorrow, until it becomes more than wood and plaster. It becomes a living, breathing soul. Arthur passed away on a Tuesday. The cancer took him slowly, piece by piece, over 3 long years. I held his hand through every brutal treatment, every moment of fear. Our son Michael visited when it was convenient, which wasn't often. The funeral was on a blustery Monday. I wanted it to be a celebration, just as Arthur had planned. He'd picked the hymns, "How Great Thou Art" was his favorite, and even written his own eulogy full of his dry wit. But Michael rushed through it like he was late for a flight. "Mom, we need to keep this moving," he'd said, his hand tight on my elbow. "People have places to be." He kept checking his phone, that little black rectangle that seemed to hold more of his attention than his own father's final farewell. "He's gone, Mom. He can't appreciate the ceremony anyway." The words felt like a slap. That should have been my first warning. The second warning came the very next day. I was in the garden trying to find solace among Arthur's prized roses, when a car I didn't recognize pulled up. A young man in a too-tight suit got out and hammered a for sale sign into my front lawn. My heart stopped. I watched from the window as the metal post sank into the earth Arthur had so carefully tended. Some people think grief makes you weak. They're wrong. Grief can make you very, very patient. And when you're dealing with someone who mistakes your silence for senility, patience becomes your greatest weapon. Michael thought he was being so clever. What he didn't know was that Arthur, my sweet, practical Arthur, had been planning for this exact moment. And the $8 million inheritance Michael thought was his for the taking had strings attached that would change everything. The way he treated his father's memory in those final months told me everything I needed to know about his character. So I stayed silent. I watched. I waited. And I let him dig his own grave. The suggestions started about a month after the funeral. "Mom, you're 70, Michael said, standing in my kitchen. The very kitchen where Arthur had built the oak cabinets that still smelled faintly of sawdust and lemon polish. "This house is too much for you. All these stairs. The yard work alone is a fortune. Our house is a 1972 craftsman bungalow. Arthur designed it himself. The great room with its vaulted cedar plank ceiling that cost us $15,000 because he insisted on the best wood. The Riverstone fireplace he laid stone by stone over one long, back-breaking summer. The wraparound porch where we spent 1,000 evenings sipping sweet tea. Michael saw none of it. It's just a house, Mom. A collection of aging materials. Dad's not here to maintain it anymore." I tried to explain. "Michael, your father's soul is in every nail, every beam. He chose this land because of the old oak tree. He designed this room to catch the morning sun. This isn't just a house. It's his legacy." "That's exactly the problem," he sighed. "The way you do with a child who doesn't understand a simple math problem. You're living in the past. Dad would want you to be comfortable, to be safe." Would he? Because Arthur and I had talked about this. We saw the way Michael looked at our things after his divorce with a kind of hungry calculation. "He doesn't understand building something, Ellie," Arthur had told me during one of his last good days, his hand frail in mine. "He only understands acquiring. He's never had to pour his sweat into something to make it his own." He was right. Michael worked in commercial real estate. He drove a shiny Lexus with $700 monthly payments. He lived in a sleek, soulless condo downtown. To him, we were just simple, aging folks sitting on a valuable piece of real estate. By the fall, the suggestions became demands. "Mom, you're being sentimental and stubborn. This property is on a half-acre lot. It's worth at least $850,000. You could buy a lovely little apartment in one of those new senior communities, have money in the bank, and never have to worry about a leaky roof again." He'd already pulled comparables, already spoken to an agent. He'd already calculated my life without consulting me. "Michael, your father built this house for us. Dad's dead, Mom. The words were flat, final, devoid of any of the reverence a son should hold for his father. Dad's dead. We have to be practical now. That's when I knew Arthur had been right to worry. In that moment, the last flicker of hope I had for my son's heart went out. But Arthur had taught me something Michael never learned. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step back and let someone show you exactly who they are. Michael's pressure became a constant, low hum in my life. He started talking about my cognitive decline, questioning if I was still sharp enough to handle my own affairs. Mom, when's the last time you even looked at your bank statement? He asked one evening, his tone dripping with condescension. Do you know what your monthly expenses are? Have you thought about property taxes? I'd been balancing our books since before he was born. I was the one who managed the budget while Arthur brought in the paychecks from his carpentry. But Michael saw a little old lady, a former schoolteacher who couldn't possibly understand the complexities of modern finance. I'm perfectly capable, Michael. Are you? He'd retorted. I'm just trying to help you think logically, Mom. You can't let emotion cloud your judgment. Logic. As if love and memory were illogical inconveniences. That night, after another frustrating phone call, I retreated to Arthur's workshop. It was exactly as he'd left it, tools hanging in neat rows on the pegboard, the scent of pine and machine oil still lingering in the air. It was my sanctuary. And there, tucked inside his old drafting table, I found the truth. It was a leather-bound portfolio, thick and heavy. Inside were not just the original blueprints for our house, but dozens of others. Detailed architectural drawings for homes Arthur had dreamed of building, intricate sketches of furniture designs, pages of notes on load-bearing walls and joist spacing. He hadn't just been a carpenter. He'd been an artist, a visionary without a formal education. And on the very last page, in his familiar sturdy handwriting, dated just 2 months before he died, was a note that made my breath catch. My dearest Ellie, this house is my heart made tangible. Every corner holds a memory of our life together. If our son cannot see the value in that, if he only sees a price tag, then he does not deserve to inherit it. Trust the plan. I love you. Always. Arthur. My hands trembled, the paper crinkling in my grip. Arthur had known. He had seen the avarice growing in our son's heart long before I was willing to admit it. The next morning Michael called. Mom, I drove by last night. The paint is peeling on the south side, and I saw a shingle in the yard. You're looking at tens of thousands in repairs. Tens of thousands. He made it sound like a death sentence. Mom, this place is a money pit. Dad wouldn't want you stressing over this. But Arthur had left detailed maintenance schedules, lists of trusted contractors, and budgets for every conceivable repair. He had planned for everything, except for our own son treating his legacy like a burden. Michael, your father put his soul into this house. Mom, souls don't pay the handyman, he said, his voice tight with impatience. That's when I knew we weren't talking about a house anymore. We were talking about whether Arthur's life had any meaning now that he wasn't here to defend it. Tucked within the portfolio was a business card. Benjamin Croft, estate attorney. On the back, Arthur had written, Ellie, when Michael starts pushing, call Ben. Don't waver. Trust our plan. I called him that afternoon. Mrs. Vance, a calm professional voice answered. I've been expecting your call. Arthur said it might come to this. He was very specific in his instructions. Can you come to my office tomorrow? Benjamin Croft's office was in one of those old, dignified buildings downtown, all marble and dark wood. The kind of place that whispers of old money and serious decisions. He was a kind-faced man in his 50s. Eleanor, he said, gesturing for me to sit. Arthur was a remarkable man. He came to see me 4 years ago. He was very concerned about Michael's financial ambitions. For years. He'd been planning this since his first diagnosis. Benjamin opened a formidable file. Arthur established the Vance Family Trust. This house, all your joint bank accounts and his other assets were transferred into it. You are the sole trustee and beneficiary. I blinked. Other assets? Benjamin allowed himself a small smile. Arthur was a very shrewd investor, Eleanor. Much better than he ever let on. He slid a single sheet of paper across the polished desk. It was a portfolio summary. The number at the bottom made the room tilt. $8,427,611.18. I don't understand, I stammered. Arthur's father invented a small but crucial component for industrial pumps, Benjamin explained gently. He never liked to talk about it, but when his father passed, Arthur inherited the patent. The royalties have been quietly accumulating and being reinvested for over 30 years. 30 years. All those times he'd said we got a tax refund that paid for a new roof, or that a side project had covered Michael's college tuition. He hadn't lied. He just protected us. Protected me. He didn't want the knowledge of this money to change how Michael treated you, Benjamin continued. He wanted to ensure that Michael's love for you was genuine, not financially motivated. Then Benjamin did something that shattered the last of my composure. He opened his laptop. Arthur left you a message. And there he was. My Arthur. He was thinner, his hair gone from the chemo, but his eyes, those steady blue eyes, were the same. Hello, my love, he began, and the sound of his voice filled the quiet office. If you're seeing this, it means I'm gone and Michael is pressuring you about the house. He gave a small sad smile. I'm sorry for the secrets, Ellie, but I had to protect you and I had to protect our home. That house. It's not just a structure. It's every dream I ever had, and you were in all of them. If Michael can't see that, if he only sees an asset to be flipped, then he has failed to understand the most important lesson I could ever teach him. The video was 10 minutes long. He explained the trust, the money, his reasons. Don't let him make you feel guilty for honoring my wishes, Ellie. This is my final gift to you. The power to protect our story. When the screen went dark, I was crying, but I was also filled with a steely resolve. Michael has an offer on the house, I told Benjamin, my voice stronger now. He wants me to sign the papers next week. Benjamin steepled his fingers. And what would you like to do? I thought of Michael rushing the funeral, dismissing his father's work, his condescension, his greed. I thought of Arthur's faith in me. Let him proceed, I said. Let him get all the way to the closing table. Let him believe he's won. Benjamin nodded, a look of respect in his eyes. Arthur said you'd say that. He said, my Ellie has the patience of a saint and the heart of a lion. Let her roar when she's ready. The closing was scheduled for March 10th, the anniversary of the day Arthur and I first met. Of course, Michael had no idea. He picked me up, brimming with self-congratulation. This is it, Mom. By lunch, you'll be free of this burden. I found a great assisted living place called The Willows. They have bingo nights. We sat in a sterile conference room at the title company. The buyers, a young couple who planned to modernize Arthur's Craftsman into a minimalist box, were there with their agent. Michael signed his portions of the paperwork with a flourish. The title agent, a woman named Linda, slid the final deed transfer toward me. Just need your signature here, Mrs. Vance. I looked at Michael, who gave me an encouraging, patronizing nod. I picked up the pen, then set it down. Actually, I said, my voice clear and firm in the quiet room, there's been a change of plans. Michael's smile vanished. Mom, what are you doing? We've been over this. I pulled out my phone and called Benjamin Croft. We're ready, I said simply. 5 minutes later, Benjamin walked in, carrying his leather briefcase. The room tensed. Good morning, he said. I am Benjamin Croft, attorney for the Vance Family Trust. Michael stared. Trust? What trust? Benjamin opened his briefcase and placed the trust document on the table. This trust, Michael, established by your father. It holds all assets, including this house. Your mother is the sole trustee. That's impossible, Michael scoffed, but a flicker of fear was in his eyes. Benjamin then placed the portfolio summary next to it. Michael's eyes scanned the page, his face draining of all color as he reached the number. $8 million, he whispered, the words barely audible. Your father was a very wealthy man, I said calmly. He wanted to be sure you loved us for who we were, not for what we had. The young couple looked horrified. Their agent started gathering her papers. The title agent looked utterly confused. But the sale, Michael stammered. Is void, Benjamin stated. Your mother is the only person with the legal authority to sell trust property, and she has chosen not to. The room erupted. The buyers stormed out, threatening to sue Michael for their expenses. Michael just sat there shell-shocked, staring at the documents that laid bare his own folly. He turned to me, his eyes pleading. Mom, I'm sorry. I had no idea. I was trying to help you. You were trying to manage me, Michael. You thought my grief made me stupid. You thought your father's life's work was just wood and drywall. Tears started to stream down his face. It was the first real emotion I'd seen from him since his father died. Your inheritance from the trust, I continued, was contingent on your father's and my assessment of your character during this period of grief. And I'm afraid you have failed that assessment completely. I stood up, my knees feeling stronger than they had in years. The house stays. The money stays in the trust. You, Michael, have some very serious thinking to do about the man you have become, and the man your father hoped you would be. I walked out of that room with Benjamin at my side, leaving my son to face the ruins of his own greed. Arthur's plan had worked. He had given me not just financial security, but the power to defend our love story. And as I stepped out into the sun, I knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of finding out if my son was capable of learning that the most valuable things in life are the ones that never had a price tag to begin with. If you're listening to this story from wherever you are in the world, remember this. Love is the only legacy that truly lasts. And it's a legacy that must be honored, long after the ones who built it are gone. The silence in the car on the way home was heavier than any I had ever known. Benjamin had offered to drive me, but I needed the solitude. The look on Michael's face, a grotesque mask of shock, avarice, and betrayal was seared behind my eyes. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt a profound, bone-deep sorrow. Arthur's plan had been a necessary shield, but using it had felt like driving a sword through my own child. The house welcomed me back, its familiar creaks and shadows a comfort. I went straight to Arthur's workshop, running my fingers over the dusty blueprint on his desk. It's done, my love, I whispered to the empty room. He knows. The consequences began almost immediately. My phone buzzed incessantly, first with calls from Michael I let go to voicemail, then from numbers I didn't recognize. By evening, my neighbor and dear friend, Clara, was at my door, her face a mixture of concern and barely contained gossip. Amelia Rose, I just got off the phone with Susan Miller, whose daughter works at the title company. She said Michael caused a scene that could be heard in the parking lot. She said there's some kind of secret fortune? Is it true? The small-town grapevine was, as always, ruthlessly efficient. There was a misunderstanding about Arthur's estate, Clara. That's all. I offered her tea, a deliberate act of normalcy, but my hands trembled slightly as I poured. The next day, a formal-looking envelope arrived via certified mail. It was from the young couple, the Wilsons. A demand letter from their attorney, outlining $15,000 in damages for architectural plans, moving expenses, and emotional distress. I set it aside on the hall table, a tangible monument to Michael's folly. He came on a Thursday evening, a week after the failed closing. I saw his car. The repossessed Lexus had been replaced by a dented, decade-old sedan, and watched him sit in the driveway for a long time, his head bowed on the steering wheel. When he finally came to the door, he looked like a ghost of the confident man who had tried to sell my home. "Mom," he said, his voice ragged. "Can I come in?" I opened the door and led him to the kitchen. He didn't sit in Arthur's chair. He took the stool at the counter like a visitor. "I'm sorry," he began, the words seeming to cost him great effort. I don't know what else to say. I messed up. Colossally." "Yes," I agreed, my voice quiet but firm. "You did. The Wilsons are suing me," he said, staring at his hands. "My credit cards are maxed out. The bank is calling about my line of credit. I thought," he trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "I thought I was about to be a millionaire." "You thought you knew better than your father and me." You thought our lives, our memories were problems for you to solve. He flinched. I see that now. I was an arrogant fool. He finally looked at me, his eyes red-rimmed. The $8 million. Dad had $8 million all this time? And he let us live like this. He gestured around the modest, well-loved kitchen. And there it was. The heart of it. He still didn't understand. Michael, I said, my patience thinning. Look at this kitchen. Really look. Your father built these cabinets. He laid this tile. We chose that wallpaper together the year you were born. We have never lived like this. We have lived in a home filled with love and purpose. The money was irrelevant. It was safety. It was a tool. It was never the point. He was quiet for a long time, absorbing this. What do I have to do, Mom, to fix this? I don't know, Michael. This isn't a checklist. You can't fix disrespect with a series of tasks. You have to transform it. How? You have to stop seeing price tags and start seeing stories. And you have to do it without any expectation of reward. He nodded slowly, a glimmer of something, understanding perhaps, in his eyes. Okay, he whispered. Okay. The first genuine change came a week later. Michael showed up on a Saturday morning, not in his suit, but in old jeans and a worn-out t-shirt. I'm not here to talk, he said. I'm here to work. Clara said your gutters are clogged, and the rose bushes are getting overgrown. I was too stunned to refuse. I watched from the window as he wrestled the extension ladder out of the garage, the same garage where Arthur had taught him how to change the oil in his first car. He worked for hours, his movements clumsy at first, then more sure as muscle memory took over. He didn't ask for money. He didn't mention the trust. He just worked. When he was done, filthy and sweating, I brought him a glass of lemonade on the porch. Thanks, Mom, he said, taking a long drink. He looked out at the yard. Dad always said a man should take pride in caring for his home. He paused. I guess I never really understood what that meant until I didn't have one worth caring about. It was a start. A small, fragile seed of a start. My granddaughter Lily was the breath of fresh air we all needed. She was 19, bright, and possessed a clarity that her father had long lost. She came to visit the following weekend, throwing her arms around me in a hug that smelled of sunshine and shampoo. Grandma, I heard Dad finally got his head out of. Well, you know. She grinned, her eyes twinkling. He called me last week and actually asked about my art history class instead of my marketable skills. She spent the afternoon with me, and I showed her Arthur's portfolio. She pored over the blueprints with an artist's eye. Grandpa was an artist, she breathed, tracing the lines of a gazebo he'd designed for the backyard. These are incredible. The proportions, the flow. This is why the house feels so peaceful. It's mathematically beautiful. He'd have loved to hear you say that, sweetheart. She looked at me, her expression turning serious. Dad doesn't see the math or the art. He just sees square footage. But I think he's trying to learn. He asked me to explain why I liked the old stuff in my classes. And what did you tell him? I told him that new things have a price, but old things have a value. And that value is the story. A month had passed. Michael had become a regular, quiet presence. He fixed a leaky faucet, repainted the garden shed, and even helped me sort through a box of old photographs. The pressure was gone, replaced by a tentative, careful respect. It was time. I called Benjamin Croft. He arrived one afternoon carrying a small, secure digital tablet. Eleanor, he said warmly, Michael's behavioral shift is noted. Arthur anticipated this possibility. He hoped for it, I corrected. He did, Benjamin agreed. And he left instructions for this moment. He handed me the tablet. There are 3 video messages for Michael. Arthur was very specific. They are to be viewed in order, with at least a week between each one. The first is about building. The second is about family. The third is about redemption. My heart swelled with love for my husband, whose foresight extended even to the path of forgiveness. I invited Michael over that evening. He looked nervous when he saw Benjamin's car. It's all right, son, I said. Your father left something for you. We sat in the living room. Benjamin started the first video. Arthur appeared on the screen sitting in his workshop. He looked tired but resolute. "Michael," he began, and my son flinched at the sound of his father's voice. "If you're seeing this, it means you've taken a first step back toward us. Toward yourself. So let's talk about what really matters. Let's talk about what it means to build something." The video was 20 minutes long. Arthur didn't mention the money once. He talked about the joy of seeing a raw piece of wood become a shelf, the importance of a level foundation, both in a house and in a life. He spoke directly to Michael, not as a disappointed father, but as a teacher who still believed his student could learn. When it ended, Michael was weeping, silent, shoulder-shaking sobs he made no effort to hide. He wasn't angry, Michael finally choked out. "He was disappointed," I said softly. "But he never stopped hoping." The second video came a week later. This one was recorded in the living room, with me sitting beside Arthur, our hands clasped. It was about the family we built, the sacrifices made, the quiet joys of a shared life. It ended with Arthur saying, "A family isn't a corporation, Michael. It's a sanctuary. You protect it, you honor it, you never ever put it up for sale." The message was sinking in, but the real-world consequences of his actions were looming larger. The lawsuit from the Wilsons was proceeding. Michael, to his credit, was facing it head-on. He'd taken a second job driving for a delivery service to start saving for a settlement. His pride was gone, replaced by a grim determination. He came over one night, exhausted, his shoulders slumped. "I'm going to sell my condo," he said flatly. "It's the only way I'll ever come close to paying the Wilsons back and clearing my debts." I looked at my son, truly seeing the weight he was carrying. The weight of his own choices. Arthur's plan was working, but it was a painful metamorphosis to witness. "That is a responsible decision, Michael," I said. It was neither praise nor condemnation. It was a simple acknowledgement of fact. The final video arrived on a rainy Sunday. Michael was now living in a small rented room. He'd sold his condo and was using the modest proceeds to pay down his debts. The man who arrived at my door was humbler, quieter. The gloss of the real estate agent had been sanded away, revealing something more genuine and more vulnerable underneath. Benjamin started the third and final video. This time, Arthur was in the garden, surrounded by his roses. "Redemption," he began, "isn't about getting back what you lost. It's about becoming someone new. Someone stronger and wiser. It's about understanding that the true inheritance I ever wanted to give you wasn't money. It was this." He gestured to the house, the garden, the very essence of the life he'd built. It was a sense of place, a sense of purpose, a knowledge of what love built. He then laid out his terms not as a punishment but as a curriculum. For 1 year, you will volunteer with Habitat for Humanity. You will learn to build not for profit but for people. You will write a letter to your mother every week, telling her what you are learning. Not about construction but about yourself. And you will spend time in this house, not as a would-be seller, but as a student of its soul. Arthur's face softened. "I love you, son. I always have. I just needed you to come back to us." The screen went black. The room was silent except for the patter of rain on the roof. Michael looked at me, his eyes clear for the first time in years. "I'll do it," he said. "All of it." The transformation was slow, arduous, and beautiful to behold. Michael started his volunteer work, his soft hands developing blisters and then calluses. He came over every Sunday, and we would walk through the house. He'd ask questions. Why did Dad angle the fireplace like this? So the heat would circulate better, and so we could see the Christmas tree from the kitchen. Why this specific type of wood for the banister? Because it held the stain well and felt warm to the touch. Your father said a house should feel warm. He was learning the language of the home. His weekly letters were at first stiff and formal, but they soon became heartfelt confessions of regret and discovery. "I helped frame a house today, Mom. I never knew how much trust was involved. Trust in the materials, trust in the plans, trust in the people working beside you. I think I broke your trust and I'm so sorry." He paid the Wilsons back in full, every penny, closing that painful chapter. He was building his life back, not on a foundation of expected wealth, but on one of hard work and earned respect. A year to the day after the third video, Michael and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple. He had just finished his year with Habitat for Humanity. He was tanned, fit, and there was a quiet confidence in him that had never been there before. "I think I finally get it, Mom," he said, sipping his iced tea. "The house, Dad's plans, all of it. It's not about the object. It's about the intention behind it. It's about the love." I reached over and took his hand. It was rough like his father's. "You've earned more than you know, Michael." I went inside and retrieved a small box from Arthur's desk. Inside was a simple key and a note in Arthur's handwriting. I handed it to Michael. "What's this?" "The key to the house. And a note from your father." Michael unfolded the paper with trembling hands. He read it aloud, his voice thick with emotion. "To my son, if you are reading this, you have come home. The true inheritance was never in a bank. It was always here in the walls I built, the garden your mother tends, and the love that fills every room. The money and the trust is yours now without restriction. Use it to build your own legacy, one with a strong foundation. Welcome home, son. With all my love, Dad." Michael looked from the note to the key, then to me, tears streaming freely down his face. He wasn't crying for the money. He was crying for the forgiveness, for the love, for the welcome he had spent so long pushing away. He didn't move out of his rented room right away. He started coming over even more, now with his own sketches and ideas, not for selling but for restoring, for honoring. The $8 million was now his, but it had become almost an afterthought. He had already received the wealth he truly needed. Arthur's plan, born of love and foresight, had not just protected me. It had saved our son. And as I watched Michael carefully repaint the old stone wall in the garden, I knew that Arthur's greatest masterpiece wasn't the house at all. It was the family, fractured and then healed, that would live on within it.